Welcome to the rabbit hole. I'm your host, Stacy. I'm here to accompany you down this journey. So let me tell you, today's episode, I really dove deep into this hole. It is one of the crazier stories I've seen in a while, even compared to the face-eating zombie. So let's go ahead and jump in to today's episode. Sarah Boone was born October 10th, 1977, and met Jorge Torres Jr. in 2017. Now, Jorge went by the name George, so in today's video, that's how I'm going to refer to him. George and Sarah began to date when Sarah and Brian, her husband at the time, were on a temporary separation. Sarah and Brian shared a young son together. Brian moved back in with Sarah for a little short while, decided, you know what, this isn't working, and they decided to go ahead and file for divorce. Now, Sarah and George were still dating this whole time. She was still with her husband, trying to work things out. And once her husband filed for divorce, she really intensified her relationship with George, and her drinking also intensified. Her husband later reported that she had a very serious drinking problem, and that was actually one of the reasons that he filed for divorce. George had a history of DV in his relationships, and the relationship with Sarah was no exception. From the very beginning, it was a pretty toxic relationship. In 2018, Sarah called police saying that George had kicked her in the eye. Police arrive and notice that Sarah has a black eye, but they also notice that George has scratch marks on his neck and cuts. So they talk to Sarah. Her version of events is that they were at a bar, they were drinking, having a good time. She asked some dude at the bar for a cigarette, and George flipped out like in a jealous rage and left. Well, she went to go meet him back at their house. They continued arguing until he finally drug her up the stairs and kicked her in the face. Now, they also talked to George. Now, George's version is that they were at home, they were drinking, they got into an argument, and he went to go upstairs to kind of avoid getting in an argument with her. She comes up behind him and chokes him. He falls down on the stairs, and he was basically doing whatever he had to do to get her off of him. So he admittedly said, yeah, I threw some fists, I threw my foot, I was doing what I had to get her off. Both Sarah and George ended up getting arrested during this incident because they couldn't figure out who was the primary aggressor. So they just said, you know what, both of you are going. They were later released because neither Sarah or George would write up a victim statement. Sarah and George lived in apartment 3 in Tealwood Apartments in Winter Park, Florida. The apartment was basically set up like a townhome, so it had an upstairs and a downstairs, paper thin walls. So one neighbor reported that Shortly after he moved into the Tealwood Apartments, he came home from a night out drinking with friends and finds Sarah sleeping on like his fenced in back patio. He said he didn't wake her up because he didn't know really what was going on. Maybe her and George were fighting and she was, just getting away. Maybe she was on drugs. So he went to bed, didn't really think anything of it, never brought it up to her, just kind of laughs about it now. Sarah and George were really living off of her ex-husband's alimony payments. From what her husband reported, she hadn't worked in 2 years. George was working on and off at the hardware store nearby their home, but not really a whole lot of income coming in other than the alimony. On February 23rd, 2020, Sarah's version of the series of events is that her and George were on the back porch, smoking cigarettes, just kind of talking, having some Chardonnay, just enjoying each other's company. Now, while they had a lot of DV situations throughout their relationship, she says that he had gotten better. He had been attending DV intervention classes and had really been learning something from them. He would come home and be like, "Oh my God, I'm so sorry for everything I've done to you. We watched this video tonight and I get it now." So she really felt like he was changing. According to what she told police, that, they were really at a good point in their relationship, one of the better points that they've had. Sarah says after they had a couple glasses of wine, had some cigarettes, they went inside and started working on a puzzle that they had been trying to put together, and then started painting pictures to decorate their home. They finished up painting around 8 p.m. and then said, "Let's play hide and seek." So she goes upstairs and hides in the shower. He never comes up there and finds her. So she comes back down and she's kind of giggling with him. They're having a good time. And there's this suitcase in the living room floor. Sarah says that the suitcase was there because they were planning on donating a lot of clothes, and they were going to put the clothes in the suitcase and donate it because it had like a faulty zipper. The clasp had come off and she had replaced it with a paper clip. So they see the suitcase and her and George are like, "Man, it would be so funny if you got in the suitcase." So allegedly, he got in the suitcase on his own free will. They were both laughing, having a good time. She jokes around, zips it up, and goes upstairs, assuming he couldn't get out of the suitcase. Now, she alleges that she could see 2 fingers sticking out of the suitcase when she headed upstairs to wait for him in bed. Now, he never showed up. Just gonna preface it with, George never went to bed. Sarah told police that she woke up the next day at around 11, but didn't make it downstairs till about 12:30. Hangover? Now, meanwhile, Brian, Sarah's ex-husband, has been calling her continuously, trying to figure out if Sarah is going to show up that day to timeshare with their son. Now, according to Brian, this is something usual for her. She's a heavy drinker. She'll constantly miss her days with her son.
About 11:30 is when I started calling to find out, because this is supposed to be her day. Her child.
Okay.
She's generally not very good about always doing it. drink.
They called back and said she was still there, or she came back.
So I was calling to find out if she was going to be getting him or not today.
From school?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, finally got a hold of her at 12:49, which is when she told me what was going on and if I'd come over here, so I came over.
She called at 12:45.
Yeah,
okay.
or 12:49.
12:49.
Got over here, told her she needed to call 911, get somebody over here, and then basically she said she needed to go outside, have a drink and a cigarette. I walked back out the house because I didn't really want to
Who
be
called?
there.
Did you call or did she call?
Well, I called. She called me back when I was on my way to make sure I was coming.
Now, girl, why didn't you call the police first? Why are you calling Brian? What's Brian gonna do? Call the police? Call the police. So she still doesn't call the police until Brian gets to her house. And it wasn't like he pulled up and she's like, ooh, 911. No. Like, he again had to tell her, hey, call the police.
Boyfriend is dead.
Okay, send the line for the fire department. Do not hang up.
No, tell me exactly what happened there.
My boyfriend and I were playing last night, and I put him in a suitcase and we were playing. And like kind of hide and seek kind of thing. So I fell asleep and I woke up and he was dead in the suitcase, so I don't know what happened.
Okay, is he hanging from somewhere or what, ma'am?
No, I pulled him out of the suitcase.
And they ask her, you know, is he cold and stiff? And she's like, well, he's stiff, but he's not cold. So the operator starts again going through the steps of doing CPR. And she says that he's purple, basically kind of telling him that he's already gone. CPR isn't going to help. Police do eventually arrive and declare George deceased. So when police question Sarah, she tells them that they were playing hide and seek. He got into the suitcase. They were all joking and laughing. She went upstairs and accidentally fell asleep. Accidentally. Not on purpose, but accidentally fell asleep.
We decided to play hide and seek, right?
Okay.
So he gets in the suitcase. The problem is I fell asleep. I fell asleep.
When did you do CPR?
This morning, when I found him.
Before you called?
Yes!
It's 1 o'clock right now.
I tried. I was awake, but I actually got out of the bed at like 12:30ish, whatever. So I came downstairs, and I was like, oh, he's in the suitcase still. And that's when I found him, and I took him out, and I tried doing CPR, and then I called him.
So, more so than George, she was concerned about George's family judging her. She kept asking police, you know, what are you going to tell his family? And they're like, you know, we're going to tell him the facts that he's gone and this is what we found. And she's like, I know they're going to blame me. I know they're going to blame me. Please don't tell them it was me, because it's not. It was an accident. And is just so concerned about what his family is going to say. It's not like she had a good relationship with them. According to Sarah, they called her the blue-eyed dragon or the blue-eyed devil. That they really didn't care for her being with their son. So I don't know why she would like really even care that they're mad at her. So at the police station during her interrogation, Sarah is really laying it on thick, trying to be, you know, this upstanding citizen. She tells police that she's a phenomenal mother and she's made all A's in school. She excels at everything she does. Like, this is totally out of character for her.
I mean, I've always been a straight-A student. I am an outstanding mother to my son. I excel at everything.
As they're questioning her about, you know, the events that happened that night, they get to her drinking. She completely denies being an alcoholic and says that I can't get drunk. I can't. I like to have my wits about me. And like, she just, you know, has a casual glass of wine here and there. No, baby, you're an alcoholic. Your husband done spilled the beans on you.
Part of it.
the alcohol has gotten worse and worse and worse over the years. That's one of the main reasons why I divorced her. I just couldn't deal with it. I mean, it got to the point where, I mean, on weekdays she'd go out, and I guess the George person is one of the people she had met, because I separated at one point and went over to my parents' house to live for a few months, and I guess she met him over at the pool place or something like that. But
so eventually police pull out their computers and they set it down on the desk and they adjust the audio and they get it ready, and they said, we're going to show you a video. Do you remember taking any videos, any pictures last night?
Any videos, or maybe having any photos, videos that you remember doing on your phone on Sunday? No.
Press play, and she recorded not one, but 2 videos of her taunting George inside the suitcase.
Everything you've done to me.
Sarah.
For everything you've done to me.
Sarah. Sarah. Sarah.
Stupid.
Sarah.
That's my name.
He's begging her, Sarah, I can't breathe. Let me out, please. It's like her speech is really slurred. So I will say that she was drunk. Now, when the police ask her, you know, why didn't you let him out? Obviously, we have you on video. He's begging for you to let him out. Why didn't you let him out? And then she says, oh, well, I thought it was like a boy crying wolf. He's always a big crybaby about everything, and I didn't take him seriously. Then she tells police that, you know, the F you, that's like love in their language. That's just how they treat each other. That's their normal relationship. So the autopsy on George eventually comes back.
We're informed of some injuries that he has by the doctor. So I want, so he's got scratch marks to his back.
I know what that's from.
Okay. So he had some injuries to his left shoulder. He had a cut near his lip. We could see his mouth was a little
I haven't laid a hand on him. I
considered
not touched him.
Trauma.
I have not touched him. I have not touched him.
Then how would you get
So
those injuries?
Sarah tries to explain away some of the injuries. She said the scratches on his back and neck were from sex, and the blunt force trauma that was also noted on the autopsy was because he runs into walls all the time.
And he's notorious for running into the wall or the hall tree.
That's just what George does. Really? Her next door neighbor reports that around 10:30 or 11, he heard like a loud crashing sound. And he believes it was down the staircase just by the way, you know how an apartment kind of mirrors the next one to it. So he assumed that it was the stairs. Something fell down the stairs. So likely, allegedly, all, you know, those injuries came from maybe falling down the stairs. It's been speculated that maybe something happened upstairs and maybe he was pushed down the stairs in the suitcase and that's what's caused all the injuries, but they really don't know. During her interrogation with police, she really tries to play up George as, you know, having a checkered past, but he's really changed, and she just wanted to help him, and how she keeps explaining to police how she's helped him become this better person, and he's now off of drugs and he's working. He's not being violent anymore. You know, trying to paint both George as the bad guy and her as kind of his savior.
Love him like I do, and I feel like I can help him. Like, I feel like I could help him, which I did, because he came a really long way.
Sarah is currently awaiting trial for second-degree murder in the Orange County Corrections Facility. She has a pretrial on October 25th, and November 7th is when this case will be heard in the courts. All right, so my opinion of this case, I'm real conflicted on this case because on one hand, I can kind of see, you know, you're drunk, you're playing around, and you think he can get out. You go lay down, you pass out, you're drunk. I can really see how that could possibly happen. But on the other hand, the way she came into these interrogations, it was like almost comical watching her try to perform. So I'm excited to see the trial. And like always, you can subscribe, like, turn on those notifications so you're the first one to know when new content is out. Thank you so much for joining me on today's rabbit hole journey. Until next time, take care. Bye-bye.